Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host. My name is Q. We are traveling today for our interviewee, matter of fact. We're going to the state with big belts, big hats, probably big bugs.
Also true. Yes.
Texas. I wish I had a cowboy hat because I actually thought about it. Like I I need more antics with this, maybe to draw more attention. But
You're good, man. You're
I
good.
was gonna wear a cowboy hat if I could, But we have a producer, an artist. He can get into more of what he does. Guest, can you please introduce yourself?
Um, my name is Brandon Cantu. I'm here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Um, my artist name is Chlorophyll Collins. Um, and I produce music with software and uh, yeah, I do the visuals and stuff for most of my stuff as well. So I guess like graphic artist is a little bit part of that as well, you know. But
Graphic art as well. Everybody welcome Chlorophyll Collins. had to
yes,
had to throw the cash register in there.
got
All right,
to.
so graphic art as well. I'm gonna put that in my notes. So,
Don't put it too many times. Don't put it too many times.
all right, it's all money on here. Because when you, I'll give you a quick analogy. Shooting hoops, like playing basketball. If I know that shot's going in, I'm shooting a shot and I know it's going in, I'm saying that's money. So with your music, um do we have two EPs?
Yeah. As far as what's on streaming platforms and everything at the moment.
Two
Um,
EPs, two EPs on streaming platforms, and every time he didn't miss. So he's 2 for 2. That's money. All right. Now Chlorophyll Collins.
that works. I also have a single before the two EPs, but anyway, yeah, just
A single as well. And we'll talk about that. I have it in my notes. I have that single here too. So um producer, some graphic art as well. Let's I want to talk about you, and we first connected pretty much through mutual um artists, associate contemporaries, and you're working with some people I know, and I got the privilege to meet you and check out your great music. So I'm excited to get into it. So Chlorophyll Collins, you're from the great state of Texas. What's the culture there? What was life like growing up in Texas, or particularly Corpus Christi?
um, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, Corpus, it's there's an element of it being like a city, but it's not necessarily like the kind of city like San Antonio or Houston or Austin or anything. But it's also not quite towards a small town type thing. There has been increases in like cultural diversity and things like that as time has pressed on, which has been nice. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid of uh, city and small town vibes, if you will.
City and small town vibes. Now, what do you do in Corpus Christi, since it's not like the big town type thing? What do you do for fun there?
um I mean, my kind of like concept of that matter is like, for me, because I've grown up, I'm an only child, and so I think for me, I just kind of learned to make my own little world, of like various interests, which uh are often inside and whatnot, like video games and shows or whatever, but I mean, as far as things to do here in Corpus that have a connection to the actual vicinity that I live in here, what do we do? I don't know. Like, go to there's a place called Asian Market that I just honestly liked walking around in, and go with friends and like try random snacks. Um, Before quarantine hit, there was an arcade called Quasars, and that place was really cool. And it was sad because it had only had kind of really gotten started more recently. I think if it was around before, I'd probably go there more often with friends. Yeah, just like chill out at bookstores, vibe with friends, go to eat. Sometimes I would like cook here at the house and invite some friends over, and because I enjoy food and nerding out on food and whatnot. So
Mm.
yeah.
It sounds like you're a very hospitable individual.
Um, I, hmm,
Mm?
I don't, I try to be. I've tried to be. I think that if anything, I can something I do definitely try to do if I'm not able to have the circumstances to like. I mean, obviously it's quarantine, it's different now, but like, just to be able to foster environments where people can like potentially connect with each other. And, like I always like the idea of like seeing these people over here, saying that I appreciate this particular thing about them, that I have these friends over here and I appreciate them for this reason as well. And that's like basically the same reason. So
Hmm.
then for them to connect, it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
On
I
beautiful
like
world.
I just yeah.
Now, I'm gonna tell for the people. Now, this is our first time speaking face to face. We've for let the record show, we've never like formally met. And this is the first time we're having a face to face. Now, the one thing that I noticed about you off the bat is that you have an extensive vocabulary,
Yeah.
and and it's extensive to me. Now, I just might be a little slow, but
No, 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 no,
no, I'm slow.
no.
But I, but there's a couple words that you use that I have to use my dictionary.com app on. So now through this interview, you say something that I'm not familiar with, I'm gonna ask you. Um, I might just go along with it and use context clues, or I might just, since it's all out in the air, I might just say, you know what, I don't know what that word means. Can you educate me and the listeners? Um,
Sure.
so, so all that being said, I'm long-winded, by the way. All that just
I
to
love that.
add.
I'm into that.
Okay, like this isn't
I
about
am
me.
too.
That's the
So,
thing. You are allowed to be long-winded on the Cool Hand podcast. Now, were you a studious person growing up?
um, well, I mean, I didn't go to college, so there's that. As far as like uh pre-college grade school, I was in public school until sixth grade, which is whenever I started homeschooling. Um, and I mean, in elementary, like there was times whenever I was part of a quote unquote accelerated program or whatever. So I mean, as to the validity of me being part of those programs, like who's to say? But I was in there. Um, and overall, I would say that I was always the kid that was getting in trouble for talking to the other classmates, because I probably just wanted attention and I was a narcissist or something. Um, so yeah, I mean, there was always the kids like for instance, they would like it would be like reading time or something, and they would be in their little bean bag or whatever, and they would be reading
Mhm.
their little book or something, and I would probably be the one that would just be like, you know. So yeah, that was, I mean, I've gotten better, like for instance, with reading or whatever, different things like that as a pastime, but I do seem to always be like, if there's anything that I'm curious on, I will always Google it, um, or try and learn about it, or like through YouTube or something. So yeah, I just have a very inquisitive mind, I would say.
And I would say that's a good thing. It's to continue to learn. So yeah. One thing, we're only, so far into this interview. One lesson to learn, if you were to learn anything, is to keep learning, just like Chlorophyll Collins. Now, now creatively, because you are a musician, you are an artist. Uh, what were the creative things that you did growing up, whether it included music or something else?
Um, hmm. I can say that I was always horrible at art. like, like, I mean, I feel like because there was always the kids that maybe it was just the means by which you could do it at that time or something. Because like before, like with the drawing or the painting or the whatever, like that was always something that I honestly kind of had a hard time with. But like I always did have an appreciation for like visual aesthetics, for example, and so I think through like through like Instagram and stuff, like I've started to have more of a taste or of things that inspire me visually. Um, Knowing how to edit photos or whatever just through that. Um, and I mean, I've always been a huge movie and TV shows fan and stuff, so just finding inspiration from that. But as far as like actual things that I created, um, I don't know, man. Probably not as much as you might think. I think that even with the guitar, like I've had a guitar for a long time. That was one of my first introductions to music and stuff. But whenever I first got started, like I was never the kid to be able to learn how to like do a cover of a song and be able to sing that. Like I always sucked at learning those things and committing to that fully, but I would always be fooling around with stuff. Um, so yeah, um, I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, no, that's a perfect segue, because
okay.
you were fooling around with stuff. You said earlier you have the inquisitive mind, so you were inquiring about many different things, maybe not learning them to the full, but still fooling around, messing with it. Now, at what point you talked about the guitar? Now, at what age did you really start um, fiddling with the music and getting a feel for it?
Um, I mean, as far as like, because obviously I was gonna say, I think it's funny that even back then, like there would be different friends or whatever that would have like their drums or their guitar, the instrument that they would have, and then
Mhm.
as it goes, it would be like, hey, you have said instrument, we should jam because that was what people like to do. They like to jam. Of course, no one knows what to do whenever they jam. I mean, some people do though. Some people do. But so something that I would end up just leaning towards is that I would always get these little ideas in my head, like musical like sketches or whatever, and I would tell my friends, I'll be like, hey, why don't you do this over here, and then I'll do this over here, and you can do this over here, and they'd be like, oh, okay, and like it may not have been much or anything, but I think that speaks to that I always had, I don't know, this mentality, like a bit of a producer's mentality, like where I would think of more of like the whole scope of everything going on, um, the sound in a holistic vein versus just like, yeah, I'm gonna do this solo or something.
Mhm.
Um, so
No,
that's how
that
I would.
no, that's good to know. I'm gonna take note of that. You always had the producer mindset. Yeah, I got notes. You can't see it, but I got notes.
Cool,
The
appreciate
producer
that.
mindset from an early age, and that's pretty interesting. You talked about people wanting to jam out. Now, there's an interview that hasn't come out yet, but by the time this comes out, it'll be out, and that's with Johnny Who, aka the father of crowded places, as he said in his deep voice.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay, okay,
he
nice.
um he talked about how he was never interested in the whole jam sessions thing, and how he just rather create his own, not dissing
Yeah,
jam sessions, but
it's
he'd
it's
rather
it's
just
around, it's there, but
yeah. But that I had to laugh at that because I just had that interview last Monday, and then you brought it up the following week. I thought it was pretty
that's cool
humorous.
though.
it,
That's
it
Samson's dad.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
How about that?
it'll be out this week. Today is February 7th. So yeah, it came out, or we did it last week. So um
Nice.
so
I look forward to
always have.
listening to that.
Oh yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. I had fun with it. But
Nice.
so do you currently, we talked about the guitar. Do you currently play a specific instrument?
Not, not, not really. If there's
Mhm.
anything that I could say, I can like the thing that I'm best at, or can do, is like I can play some guitar. I mean, like I can do like finger style picking type, like arpeggiations and playing in that way, like stuff that you might hear like from folk music or something. And I know like the C, G, and the D chords and like general shapes and whatnot. I can. So that's probably the thing that I'm most fluent with, as far as real world instruments goes. But most of the way that I've produced or gotten into producing has been just kind of through knowing general music theory and learning, like, I mean, I taught that on my own. Like, I taught myself that, and then I just was able to use like my laptop and something like, I have a digital piano that I use as a MIDI keyboard, and I just flesh out ideas like chord or melodic ideas through that. Or I'll even just use like my keyboard on my laptop to like
Okay.
input stuff. So, um, yeah, as of
Okay.
yet.
So now I'm gonna tell you something. I'm trying to
Yep.
piece things together by way of questions. Now, my questions may just not be hitting this interview. So I couldn't piece things together in my in this little mind of mine to bring us to the point that I have to ask. Now, how in the world did you get into producing? Into the production aspect, because you mess with the guitar, you know some things with the guitar. Now, how did the whole production aspect of your creativity come into play?
Yeah. No, I thank you for explicitly asking that, because I recognize I was probably supposed to introduce that, but I just hadn't yet. But yeah, in keeping with that idea of like wanting to make music on my own and whatnot, and maybe not always being able to like communicate what I wanted to do with friends or something, I just, I guess in being a nerd or something, found like free software on on from the internet that I was able to start using. And that was I was just looking at my like old files on my laptop just earlier, and the earliest date that I could find was from 2012. Um, and so I think I would have been like 18 then.
Hmm.
Um, and so that was whenever I first started using this free software, um, and just kind of like noodling around. And then I got into GarageBand, through my phone, and using other apps and importing those things into, or exporting those things into GarageBand and doing stuff with that. And then I currently now use a software called Reason, and that's been going on for a while now. I don't really have a good estimation for how long that's been, but yeah, that's been the progression of that. Yep.
Now, there's a degree of difficulty in learning software. um
Yep.
I'll tell you a story, maybe about 2014, just a quick story. um I had Crowded Places. He came over to crib, and he had FL Studio. He sent me the FL Studio, and I downloaded it thinking, okay, maybe this could be a new hobby of mine. Maybe I could get into the production game. And I was rapping back then. I liked to rap back then. And I'm like, if I can make my own beats and all this stuff, and it wasn't for me. I just remember and we were like making, like he was making a beat next to me and I'm there trying to figure out what to do first. So there is a severe degree of difficulty, in my opinion, when it comes to those different software. So when it came to actually using the software and putting the music on there, how did that come about?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely readily acknowledge that difficulty level and everything because that I definitely felt that. Like, I know that from GarageBand to the program that I use now, I remember even I had downloaded that program and I didn't use it for a while. Like, I would touch it, be like, uh, yeah, I'll go back to GarageBand, you know? Um, so, but yeah, I mean, it's funny, something that I had kind of had a mentality of, and I think I still kind of have this mentality at times, is I always felt like I had to read the whole manual or something, and then I would know what to do. But funny thing is that that is not the way that goes. It's a continual process of trial and error that you have to, I think, humbly submit to and learn to adapt or adopt in your workflow. You know, it's a
Mhm.
process of learning to overcome failure. So that's the way that that went for me. I slowly but surely, through just like a lot of experimentation, honestly, um, I learned things that I gravitated to, as far as workflow, sounds that I liked, sounds that I wanted to incorporate into my own musical vocabulary, if you will. So yeah, but it's been a kind of a long process, honestly.
How would you classify your music? What would you put it in put it in a genre?
um, I I think something that inspires me a lot is artist artists that are able to not be so bound to genre. Um, but definitely something that's permeated my brain and whatnot from the outset has been um, like electronic beat music, kind of like Kevin and that T plus plus, you know. Um, Flying Lotus has been a big inspiration and people like that. So yeah, it's kind of it's a medley of influences for sure, and hopefully that can be felt like in my music and whatnot. But um, but yeah, I guess like experimental electronic would probably have to be the safest categorization. So yeah.
Understood. Now, did you have any, you just mentioned Flying Lotus. Did you have any, or do you have any other influences that kind of shaped, not that you copy their style or anything like that, but kind of shaped the kind of producer or artist that you are? Any other influences or inspirations?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, in keeping with Flying Lotus, I mean, there's definitely other artists like Clams Casino that just have a very spacious um, way of producing. There's a lot of ambience, and it's, I don't know, takes you kind of to another place, and that's always been something that's inspired me. But I think even growing up, like, I wasn't necessarily listening to like hip hop influenced stuff whenever I was just getting into music and buying CDs as a kid. Like, it was kind of like more indie and emo music and stuff like that. So I kind of think that that has influenced the emotiveness of my music and how um, yeah, it's like an emotional beat music or things that kind of are in that sense. I'm not really good as of yet. I would like to learn jazz chords, but as of yet, I've never been able to quite be the like cool, like doing beats, whatever guy or something. Like, I don't know. I have other influences and things going on in my head usually. So
Hmm. So, and one thing about creating music, when you do that, have you ever, now the two projects I listened to and the single that I listened to on Apple Music, um, it's instrumental. It's production. Does
appreciate
Chlorophyll Collins, do you write lyrics? Do you sing? Do you drop bars?
that. um anytime I listen to like rap music or something or some other stuff, like there have been at times where I've been inspired lyrically to write stuff down, that I have on the notes app. um,
Okay.
so, but like, as far as me being able to adequately, do that, like that's another thing. But I do love words. I mean, if you couldn't tell already. But so I singer songwriter music is definitely something that inspires me. Like I said, that like emotiveness, the kind of like wearing the heart on the sleeve kind of vibe to that, like Phoebe Bridgers or something,
Mhm.
is something that I've been very inspired by lately. Um, and so I would like to be able to in the future um, blend those worlds. Um, I think the vocal sensibility is something that can kind of be a very direct way of conveying something.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, on EP2, the last song that I have, it's called Voices, and um, that is me like singing. It's very small amount because I just as far as song structure, whenever it comes to um, using things like verse chorus formats and just like singer songwritery like format of music, that's a very new terrain for me. So I kind of just work small at that point,
Mhm.
but there are like, I mean, there are lyrics that I wrote and everything. So um, yeah, hopefully more in the future. Hopefully I can develop that. But as of yet, something that I've also kind of enjoyed is being able to kind of convey lyrical ideas even from samples. Um, like on the song Humphrey with Jayla, I use a Mariah Carey sample, and that vocal sample says "hurting so much," and I just like that little brushstroke, you know. So yeah.
What's your goal um with music? How what's your end goal whenever you create a song, when you create a project? Uh what do you want to accomplish from creating it?
Hmm. Um, hmm. I think I don't think I ever. I should learn to produce and create more with an end goal in mind, but I think as of yet, the mostly it's been just like a continual process of like exploration. Maybe maybe that's the end goal. I don't know, is exploration or something. Um, but in retrospect, I guess if anything, kind of, I don't know, like something that's always inspired me is movies. And with movies, like it can be something that is a totally different scenario than like your actual life, but it affects you on an emotional level still, and it somehow transcends into the things that we interact with in our life, and so I think that's something that I've kind of sought to do, is provide like a template through the abstraction of my music and the sounds and the musical world that I create, that like listeners can inhabit for a little bit, like just a vehicle for them to potentially be able to, um, yeah, find their own emotional nook or their own sets of thoughts and experiences that they can like put into that, you know. So yeah.
Mhm. Do you ever listen to one of your songs and think about maybe a certain or a specific moment in your life? Since I'm not a creator, not really like an artist, I can't really think about, I can't relate to this. So I would imagine if I was a producer, I might listen to a song and of mine and say, "Oh, this is good," and remember all the work that was put into making it. But do you listen to your music and think about like, "Wow, this makes me think about when I was 17 and like that one person and it didn't go well," or do you get those emotions from listening to your own music?
Um, I mean, I will say, and this is probably something that you've heard as well from other artists, like listening to your own music is kind of a really weird experience. Because for one, like something that I can endlessly hear is just like, oh yeah, this thing in the mix I don't like that's stuff that I always think about, you know. I remember hearing this one artist saying how, like, um, am I getting more orange as time is getting on? I feel like, I don't know. It's like, I feel like everything is orange on my side, and you're so like blue and
Oh,
like,
that's because it's dark and I have just two lights behind this
okay,
camera. No, I
yeah,
guess you're in the big state of Texas. The sun's still out. The sun's going
I
down
guess
here.
so.
It's
I feel like I'm turning into an Oompa Loompa or something.
no, you look good. You look good. You got the glass. Like you look good.
Okay, that works. I appreciate you, man. Um, okay, so I was talking about, what was I talking
Listening to your own music.
that? Yes. Um, yeah, let's like I remember hearing this one artist saying about how releasing something is just a process of like learning how to give up, like, and like release. Like, okay, you can't touch it anymore. Like you gotta like let it go,
Hmm.
you know? Like the idea that nothing is ever done in a way. Um, so yeah, like the funny thing is just like you can totally have your own set of perception and whatever on your own music and the things that you were thinking about and the things that you aim to, um I guess, like, because yeah, like for me, definitely whenever I create music, there's like a thematic that I have in my mind. Like Hallowed Era, for instance, is very much coming from a place of uh like healing. Um, I mean, Hallowed Era is a kind of like double entendre or whatever on like aloe vera,
Hmm.
um, which was used for healing, and then I think like biblical aloes, which I should remember exactly what that is, but I know it's a thing. um,
I don't
so
either.
yeah, I mean, but but yeah, it's like the I mean, it's kind of like personal and stuff, like the song titles and everything, and they relate to things that are very personal to me. But it's there's definitely like an abstract emotional arc that I sought to convey, especially through my first EP, and this just like this narrative of healing. Um, with EP2, it wasn't so bound to any kind of like narrative thing, and it was actually honestly like coming from like leftovers of Hallowed Era, and then it was just a compilation of stuff that I was like, you know what, this works. Um, but yeah, uh, and I'm trying to remember what the original question was. I feel like this happens so often.
You know what? I can't remember either, to tell you the truth. And you know what? That's okay. I know it was along the lines of, I'm not even going to try to remember what it was along the lines of, but we're having a conversation. So that's how conversations go sometimes. Um
IRL, IRL.
that this is facts. This is facts. So
Yeah.
um let's talk about the creation process,
Mm,
because everybody works differently. uh first of all, for if there's any producers listening to this, who just might be, want to know how somebody else works and compare styles and maybe get it even improvements in what they do. Now, let's talk about equipment first, and then we'll talk about putting the song together. Now, what do you use to make music?
It's so sad. I mean, as of yet, honestly, like I don't even like honestly, bro, like your rig is like substantially better than mine.
Oh, please.
No, really, like I remember like I had a condenser mic at one time and then I sold it because I wasn't really using it. So most of the time, I really will just like record. If I'm recording like real life audio, I'll be using like this mic
Hmm.
or like yeah, the thing on there from the iPhone.
Hmm.
Um which is fine because a lot of the stuff that I've done has been very there are like lo-fi influences. I am very attracted to the idea of things feeling distressed and kind of beat up and like found sound type of quality lo-fi. Because I mean, originally like lo-fi was before it became known as like beats. I mean, there was like Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth and stuff like that. Like that was lo-fi, and so I am kind of attracted to that kind of aesthetic, and so I don't mind if I just record with what I have and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I have a guitar over there. It's a nylon string guitar that I've had forever, and if a guitarist looked at it, they would probably cringe because of how beat up it is or whatever. But tonally, it helps convey what I want it to do. And then mostly I just I mean I've sampled from vinyl before, but also I would just like scour YouTube and if something inspired me, I would record it through programs and just kind of mangle it with whatever virtual stuff I have in my production software.
Right. We have Allode Era and EP2 out. So everyone just heard what Chlorophyll Collins uses, and he uses Reason. But he you modestly and humbly um minimized what you used into he doesn't use that much stuff, or that great stuff. Now I saw your setup on Instagram. Now it looks real official. But but since I'm not a producer, I don't know what all these other producers have, and
Well,
all this other stuff.
like I use this for my videos. This is an SP404. I don't produce like Tevin uses this, that T plus plus. I'm yet to get into producing with this, but I do use it for like videos and stuff at times. Um, but yeah, it's mostly been like what's here in this laptop.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I've always kind of been of the notion that also because I didn't always necessarily have the money for it, but like I feel like it's not what you use, but how you use it.
Facts. Tell them.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I don't mean to like throw shade at anyone that's excited about like this whatever thing that they just got, because tools can be very much helpful, absolutely. I'm not arguing that point. But especially whenever it comes to the world of uh, what's called DAWs, digital audio workstations, what ends up happening is that there's so many sounds to pick from. There are so many virtual instruments to use, and you can become paralyzed by the amount of options that you have. And so if you can just settle on learning how to use a couple things and just keep on using them, um, in line with whatever style you're trying to develop, um, that is the move, because it's not this fancy $700 synthesizer that you are like so wanting or whatever that's going to change your sound. It's like you're going to change your sound, you know, or mold it to however you need it to get to, you know. But yeah, not throwing shade at $700 synthesizers or owners of said seven
No
hundred
shade.
dollars
No,
synthesizers.
no shade at all. No shade at all. And you know what? I agree with you wholeheartedly. Although I come from this little podcast thing of mine. Now, people like I have stuff, and I've spent a nice deal of money. You know, yeah, and I'm not rich. Let the record show that the Cool Hand podcast is broke. Um, but you know, I have
Interesting.
yeah, this is a hobby that I've invested a lot into, but when it comes down to it, I don't need this device that I'm recording on. I don't need a microphone. People are recording podcasts off their phones. People are recording podcasts just using having Zoom interviews and using the mic off of their laptop or computer. So it, like you said, like this mic, this clear audio will not make me ask better questions. This will not make me engage with a guest better. It's a craft. So you can have all the tools and instruments in the world, and you can be whack in
Oh yeah.
podcasting and in music. There's plenty of
Oh
whack
yeah.
artists out there.
Oh yeah.
You agree with that? So when it comes to constructing a song, for Chlorophyll Collins, is there a general process of how a song comes about?
um, in general terms, exploration. Um, in more concrete terms, oftentimes it kind of starts from, also since I'm not super adept at my chord knowledge, um, it kind of usually starts with samples actually, um, and then from the sample, that's like a source of inspo to continue, kind of building around that. Yeah, and just like the process of mingling the sample and yeah, so that's just kind of that's kind of the way I've, yeah, that's generally it, I guess. Sort of.
So it starts with the sample, and um, let's talk a ballpark number when it comes to just one song. Um, how long does one song take to work on? I know an artist is never really finished, but I'm gonna give you. Let me pull one of your songs up. let's
Oh
uh
gosh.
let's have a sample size. Let's see. Chlorophyll Collins. I'm gonna go to no. I want to pick the song. I'm not just gonna pick a random song. Let's do Humphrey with featuring Jay Leday. Shout out to Jay Leday. Now uh now that song may be a little special because it has a feature on it. But how long does a song like that take to just record and finish things like that?
Well, I mean, like I had that song, or like the start of it, I think I think around the time that Alod era was being worked on. But I don't know, it just didn't feel like it fit quite. Like there was a very particular, like I said, kind of like arc, like sonically speaking, musically, emotionally, that the track listing for Alad era had already kind of settled into. So it felt. And I didn't know really where like that song would fit in our era. So, but I knew that I liked it. I knew that it was something that felt me. Um, and and whenever you find that, it's like that's not really something that you want to kind of pass up, you know.
Hmm.
If it's something that adds to your like artistic and musical identity. So with that, yeah, it was just like there. It was just kind of like a a beat, mostly ambience and whatnot. But yeah, I just been talking to like Jayla, and she's just a really cool like person, and she's like developing her sound, of course, too, like for her like solo stuff. But yeah, definitely she has that unique skill set of playing guitar that I don't have. You know, like I can do. For me, it's more of a like to as a means kind of thing,
Hmm.
to be able to convey what I need to. But with her, it's like that is something that she definitely like. That's a thing that she does. That's her. That's kind of her thing. Even though she is a multifaceted artist, I would say. So yeah, I was like, hey, can you kind of like sort of shred for a little bit?
Hmm.
Like, um, I wanted to feel like soulful and but like kind of go in, you know. And she was like, okay. And so sent her the file, opened up. I think I kind of like arranged it a little bit more, took some stuff out so I could give her that kind of like area. And then sent it to her. Then she sent me the just the guitar back so I could kind of like work with it because that's kind of the way I am. I like to um anything that I have, I like to have the final say in like how it is put together. Um and so I added some tone processing and other things to complement that element. And yeah, I don't remember the amount of time it took. I mean, definitely several months. Uh, but yeah, like any given song can definitely. There's always potential for it to be like more than a year old or something. Like
Okay.
there's always stuff that like you can have this thing, you can be like, I like this little thing about it, but I don't know what to do with it. And just kind of set it aside. And then later, you just kind of like look at it, check it out, be like, oh, that's something interesting, or fool with it. And then it opens up a new like mental nook that you didn't know about, you know, because you're in a different headspace, you're in a different emotional space, you know. So there's always potential for that.
Understood. That makes perfect sense. So, I only have maybe two or three more questions for you. Um,
Yeah.
I guess this one counts as two. Can you talk about some of the ups and downs, some of the positives and negatives when it comes to creating? You can start with either or, positive or negative.
Um, well, I think that I think that like I said, being an artist kind of makes it almost like kind of necessary to be a little bit of a narcissist. It's really weird. Like you get a really weird like feel for your own ego and stuff because what being an artist means is that like you're saying to yourself and you're saying to everyone else that like something that came from you deserves to be heard by all these people. So like what you did is now you're like, hey everyone, check this out, you know. And it can be a really weird feeling to get to that point, you know. So you really have to believe in an idea that you are forming. Um, and with that, there is a whole lot of like emotional weird like baggage and stuff that can come from that. I mean, I know that something that I deal with a lot is that it's this thing called like, I know there's deeper variations of it and everything, but like imposter syndrome, where you feel that the field in which you're working in, like you don't belong, and that you're not valid as someone who's trying to make something, and that you're actually like a hoax or something. And um, so yeah, like so much of what I do has been plagued by that feeling, and learning how to overcome that. Um, Definitely learning, like broadening your artistic friend base and people that you can connect with artistically. Doesn't mean they have to do exactly what you do or anything by any means. It can even be they can even be other artists just like in other fields as well. But just people that you connect with that are able to objectively like take what you have and be able to like give input like that is so valuable. um yeah, and so you know lately, I mean there's you, there's Samson, there's Jayla. I mean, like I had my friend Yumi who helped with the design on the cassette release that's coming out of the two EPs. And she's worked with visual arts before and different things. So definitely like there's been a friend group that I've been able to start forming. And I mean, also like here we have Hybrid Records who is putting out this tape, like just different people that have been able to be supportive and um, you know, uh, yeah, different people like come through in different ways, and you kind of learn what those ways are, what those roles might be, but getting a feel for that is very, very valuable. But that didn't necessarily happen until like this year, like whenever I started really putting this Chlorophyll Collins stuff out. It's been a process. And there's been a whole lot of like just internal me just like working on this stuff all inside of myself and whatnot, before all of what's going on now, So, but yeah, you definitely have to kind of put yourself up for scrutiny, and it can be very, very scary. But that's also what makes the successes of people responding to that stuff very exciting, you know,
Mhm.
and rewarding. So, so yeah.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of positive feedback. I know I really like your music. Everybody has their own tastes, and
Mhm.
I can listen to something that people think is like whack, but I think I have a decent gauge of what's good and what's not. And even there's certain music that you listen to and you say, "Oh, I can see why it's good, but it's not my
Mm,
taste." But
yeah.
I see why your music is good for the most part, because I can't break down music and explain music very intricately, but I know I like it. I know how when things sound crisp and things of that nature. So uh, what's your biggest satisfaction when it comes to releasing music and things like that?
Um, I think it's whenever people that honestly, like when people that I would perceive them having a taste that I admire. Like, I mean, I feel like you have good taste, and so it's like, you telling me that you like my stuff, like that's very satisfying, or for it to be something that you feel is worthy of like this podcast, stuff like that. But yeah, definitely artists, fellow artists that I really respect that I can listen to their stuff and um, like Samson's, EP. Like whenever I just got to know Samson and hear that EP, like I was like, hey, this is someone that's like doing some good stuff, and and so then hearing that he was into my stuff and things were able to resonate with him like on a deeper level, like on emotional levels and conceptual levels, like that's very rewarding, being able to connect in that way. Um, so that's yeah, that's very satisfying for sure.
And what's coming up next? What can the people expect from Chlorophyll Collins in the future, near future, long term?
Uh, um, some remixes. I There's one that I won't really talk about because hopefully you'll see it whenever it happens. I still need to finish it. Um, One I can say is a song of mine that was like a SoundCloud release called Birds on Mars. And uh, Crowded Places worked with me on a remix of that and killed it. And that was very new, wonderful collaborative thing that happened that I'm excited about. I haven't created an image for it, and so I'm gonna be doing that, and then probably whenever that happens, I can drop it. So those are the most, and then well, the cassette release of it's gonna be it's small batch. Um, it's gonna be like 20 copies or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm saying anything that I'm not supposed to, but pre-order is going to be coming up. Pre-order is coming up soon. So I'll definitely, whenever that happens, I'll post about it so that, people can know about that. So yeah, I mean, hopefully I can have a little bit of down. It's not as if I'm over here like being like Dr. Dre, like I've got all these things going on and I'm like busy and whatever. Like, but honestly, social media can be kind of wearisome on my soul. So I don't know. Hope it would be nice to take a little bit of a hiatus from that and just kind of focus on other more real life things for a little bit. But we'll we'll see. Um, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Chlorophyll Collins. Before there was Chlorophyll Collins, there was Brandon. Now there was Brandon Cantu. Am I saying that right?
yeah. I mean, like I used to say it more like not super Spanish like
Mm-hmm.
Cantu, but I think Cantu is
Cantu.
yeah.
I want to respect your name. Yeah. Brandon Cantu is a human. First of all, he's a human being that has human being feelings and emotions. So
That is
um,
true.
you have the right to take a hiatus. I'm just coming back. I chilled out for a month. I'm like, all right, it's the end of the calendar year. I'm done. Like, because I hate editing. I don't like it. I'm learning more, but I just like this part, honestly. I like doing this part. And then I wish it just came out on its own. Like, the
Yeah.
audio file just walked itself to, you know, but so, you
Yeah.
reserve that right to take a break. So we have, the Birds on Mars remix cassette tapes. We have some cool hand picks. This is something that I just came up with right now. Um,
Nice.
by Chlorophyll Collins, we have Canopy, Humphrey, featuring Jay Leday, um, intro / while you're, and that's from the Allowed era. The other two were from EP2, and we also have Thursdays from the Allowed era EP. So those are some cool hand picks. You might want to check those out, and it's a couple tracks each from each EP, and then there is the single that all is calm and peaceful, and then in parentheses it says birds. So
That the reason why it's called that is because the sample that I used is from a children's song off of a vinyl record, and it was a song about birds. And I mean, I was just having this conversation with Samson about like conceptual stuff. It's like it's a medley of like abstract ideas. It's kind of meant to be a bit of a satire, and I don't know. I like the idea of birds and how they're just kind of like omnipresent and like free and stuff.
mhm.
Um, but anyway, it was like sonically, it was my way of just releasing like my first thing that I was like happy with, and was something that I was like, okay, this is something that I can like identify myself with, So
Mhm. All right. Any last words? We're done here. Is there anything that I missed? Anybody you want to shout out? Anybody you want to diss? Anybody you want to give some smoke to? Like, but just kidding. But any shout outs, anything that I'd missed, anything like that.
um, I I don't know, man. I mean, like, just tune into my Instagram if you want or something, and we'll connect you there. And I don't know. I mean, like, uh, it, yeah, yeah.
He's
Yeah, I think
ad-libbing
that's it.
right now. This was he's dropping ad libs.
That's yes. I I don't know.
Chlorophyll Collins, everybody. Tune in on Instagram. He dropped some videos, very good videos, aesthetically pleasing, pleasing to the eye. He does the Friday flips on Instagram where he's flipping a track and making it his own. Very interesting. I would tune in if I were you. And if I were me, I'd end this episode. So this is the Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. Easy.